running with the right crowd. I'm going to start the morning off with a little bit of good news, though, for Oregonians. For the last several weeks, I've been leading the push to secure the release of an Oregon firefighter, Mr. Hernandez, who was detained by ICE while fighting the Bear Gulch fire in Washington State. We've been pushing ICE constantly to reveal the whereabouts after they detained him, and we've been watchdogging ICE to ensure that his attorneys at the Innovation Lab and the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project would have access to him, and we would have a united effort to secure his release. So this morning, I'm pleased to tell folks across our state that Mr. Hernandez has been released. He is finally home in Between the time I started my remarks and now, he may have actually seen his family, which is good. He is, in my view, a textbook example of somebody who has complied with the immigration process. He followed all the laws. He put his life on the line to keep communities safe from wildfires at the very time when everybody with some common sense knows that we need more resources, we need more help. So instead of recognizing Mr. Hernandez's service to the country, the Trump administration actually had him arrested and thrown into detention without due process. So today makes clear that ICE had no business detaining an Oregon firefighter in the first place. It also reinforces the fact that too often their agenda is more about cruelty than making our country safe. If the administration had a real interest in protecting Americans, it'd be going after real criminals who are putting at risk our communities instead of arresting firefighters. So I'm going to wrap this part of the program up saying that this is another reason why I, as Oregon's senior senator, am going to continue to use every tool at our disposal, oversight, legislation, public pressure, to uphold due process rights in our community. So we've got wonderful guests. I'm going to introduce them all in a minute, but I want to take just a couple of minutes to tell you why we're talking about vote by mail today. Because you might say, my God, there is so much going on in the world. What are they talking about vote by mail today for? The reason we're talking about vote by mail today is because while it sounds bizarre, Donald Trump is taking advice on American elections from Vladimir Putin. Just kind of think about that one. I mean, going to an authoritarian like Putin to get instructions so that we'd hear what the Kremlin thought we ought to be doing makes me suggest what more can you do that is peculiar and bizarre at a time when we have so many real needs. Anyway, Putin started talking to him. Trump essentially used it as his proposal, apparently, for an executive order. And just so everybody understands my position on this, what Trump should have done when he heard Putin bring it up, he should have said loud and clear, "Nyet." That would have made it clear to everybody what our position was. So now we face what amounts to a five-alarm, fire with an effort to reduce our ability to vote by mail. And here in the Wayne Morris Courthouse, I wanted to make sure everybody knew what our priorities are, which is to protect a system of voting that we know works. And as we get into this debate again, I want to make sure that people understand what our response is, that somehow this is a partisan thing. It is not. I am the nation's first senator elected by mail. It's not an atomic secret that I'm a Democrat. What people may not know is our second United States Senator was Gordon Smith, who was a Republican. And what even fewer people may know is that Dennis Richardson, the late Dennis Richardson, who was our Secretary of State, who has the position that my colleague holds, was a tremendous advocate for vote by mail on the grounds that it was smart, it was convenient, and that he, as a conservative Republican, who, by the way, basically told Trump to go fly a kite on this, that he personally, as a conservative Republican, had taken the steps to ensure that voting was safe. So instead of restricting the right to vote by mail in Oregon and elsewhere, I want to take Oregon's vote by mail nationwide. Every nook and cranny of America, so that everybody else has a chance to do it. And by the way, people are kind of waiting for it. During COVID, I was struck by the fact that I would go to airports and people would come up and they'd go, "Congratulations, Ron, you got your vote by mail bill passed." And I would say, "Gosh, I didn't kind of sort of get it passed." The reason you think it's law is today because your state decided it was so important that you get to vote and not forfeit your vote or lose your vote because of COVID. So people didn't even know at the time that our law hadn't actually passed, but their state had shown leadership in trying to promote vote by mail. So with that, let me give you the man who constantly gives public service a good name, and particularly on voting, Tobias Reed.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Thanks for bringing us all here today. As Oregon's top election official, I am excited to talk about how we can continue to defend the rights of Oregonians to hold politicians accountable. The President's comments on vote by mail are just the latest in an alarming trend of attacks on our elections. Early on in his administration, he cut critical cybersecurity and physical security programs that counties rely on to keep elections and the people who run them safe. Then he tried to tie election funding to divisive culture wars, saying that we'd only get the funds we need if we made life harder for LGBTQ people and communities of color. Next came an illegal executive order designed to put new barriers between Americans and their right to vote. We took him to court immediately. Then this summer, they came demanding access to Oregonians' private data, driver's license numbers, birthdays, full birthdays, party affiliation, partial social security numbers, sensitive personal information from our voter file. And I said, not a chance. They didn't like that, and now they're suing me. I can't say a lot more about that lawsuit, but what I will say is that I look forward to making our case to defend Oregonians' right to privacy in court. And on top of all this, as you heard from the Senator, the President is now parroting election advice from Vladimir Putin to get rid of vote by mail. But in Oregon, we know better. We've been voting by mail for decades, safely, securely, and fairly. We all know this. It is more convenient, it saves money, and it boosts participation. That is how democracy should work. So let's be clear. Let's call this what it is. All of this is a deliberate attempt to make voting harder, more expensive, and less secure, because President Trump is scared. He is scared of losing power in a free and fair election in 2026. He knows that what he is doing is unpopular, and he's doing everything he can to stop the American people from holding him and his cronies accountable. But here's the good news. The Constitution is not on his side. Article 1, Section 4 says very clearly, states run elections, not presidents. And in Oregon, we will defend that authority every single time. If Congress tries to strip away your rights, I'll work with the Senator, with our full delegation, and we will fight back. Because our oath is to you, the people, and to the laws that protect your freedom. That's how we defend democracy, and that's how we protect your voice. I'm glad to be joined by my colleague, Oregon House Speaker Julie Fahey.
Yay, Julie!
Good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Fahey, Speaker of the House in the Oregon Legislature, and proud to represent West Eugene and Dunedin in the legislature in Salem. We are all standing here together, state leaders, community leaders, Senator Wyden, because we are committed to defending our democracy at a time when our democracy is under threat. And defending our democracy means defending the basic freedoms that uphold it. So we're seeing some of that in action today. The right to assemble, the right for the press to exercise its independence, and the right for all of us to speak freely without fear of government reprisal. But each of those freedoms depends on one basic right, the right to vote. And when that right is threatened, it threatens the foundation of our democracy itself. Here in Oregon, we have shown that vote by mail is one of the most secure and effective ways to protect that foundation. Vote by mail strengthens voter participation. It builds trust, and it is why Oregon is a national leader in voter turnout. Our state leaders have spent years strengthening this system. The legislature over the last few years has passed bills that would eliminate the need for stamps in vote by mail and make sure that all ballots that are received by election day, that are postmarked by election day, are counted. And we've also passed bills to protect the election workers who do that important work of counting the ballots. In addition to vote by mail, we've also implemented automatic voter registration and online registration to make access to the ballot even easier. Each of those steps has been in service of ensuring that every eligible Oregon voter can safely and securely and conveniently cast a ballot. In response, Oregonians have made their voice clear. In 1998, voters approved a vote-by-mail ballot measure by a margin of over 2-1. And vote-by-mail remains overwhelmingly popular with Oregonians. In fact, last legislative session, when Republicans in the legislature introduced a bill to ban vote-by-mail, there was so much opposition testimony submitted that it actually broke the legislative website. So let me say again, Oregonians spoke up so loudly against the idea of repealing vote by mail that it actually broke the internet. In these uncertain times, Oregon is continuing to lead. We have shown the nation that vote by mail is secure, effective, and popular with voters. Our system demonstrates that when you make it easier for people to participate, democracy grows stronger. Our country cannot go backwards, and Oregon will continue leading the way, no matter what. And now, I'd like to turn over to my friend and colleague, Senator Manning, also from West Eugene.
Eugene.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Wyden, it's always great to see you. And as Secretary of State, hey, good to be here. Good to be on the same platform with you for a minute. My name is James Ivory Manning, Jr. I'm the current Senate President Pro Tem of the Oregon State Senate. And also, this is my Senate district. Speaker Fahey and Representative Nathan, both are the two House representatives here. There's a few things that I want to say briefly. One is that when you look back at the 1965 Voting Rights Act, a lot of people were unable to vote. But then that changed everything. When I hear students say, I'm not going to vote because it doesn't matter, it does matter. It does matter because it'll go probably more than likely against your best interest. I just briefly want to read a little statement that another veteran that served as Secretary of State in this great state of ours wrote. He said, all Oregonians should be proud of our state election systems and processes. As the first state to implement vote by mail and automatic voter registration at the DMV, we are leading the nation in defining the best practices on accessibility, security, and integrity in elections. Now, we are encouraging other states to follow our example, and this was former Secretary of State Dennis Richardson. Dennis Richardson understood the value of vote by mail and how it affects our most seniors that don't have access, or rural community members that can't get out and reach a drop box. This is one of the greatest securest systems that can ever be implemented, and there is a tracking method. So I want to continue. I want to thank again Senator Wyden for leading the spear on this, certainly our Secretary of State, Tobias Reed, and our Speaker, and I am followed by one of the most fierce, although she may be short, she is really tough, former Representative Barbara Smith-Warner.
Thank you so much, Senator Manning, and indeed, props to everybody who spoke before me, Senator Wyden, Secretary Reed, Speaker Fahey. It's such an honor to be here defending and supporting Oregon's original mail ballot system. My name is Barbara Smith-Warner. I'm both a former state House member and majority leader in the Oregon House, and I'm also executive director of the National Voter Home Institute.
Yay!
Woo! So the National Vote at Home Institute, we are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that works to increase voters' access to, use of, and confidence in voting at home with a mailed-out ballot. Since 2018, Vote at Home has helped state policymakers and election administrators facilitate innovation of Vote at Home systems by providing best practices on research, policy, and communications. So a couple quick things about voting at home to close this out here. Number one, it's not new. Voters were first allowed to get mail ballots in the Civil War because there was a belief that if you were literally out there fighting for the future of your country, you should be able to have a say in who is going to lead it next. So that was when they started. And since then, they've been a staple of American elections. We say vote at home at the National Vote at Home Institute because to focus on the voter-centric nature of it, right? If voting is the foundation of our democracy, and not only everyone here, but everyone everywhere, I think generally believes that and understands that, it should be as easy as possible. And there is nothing easier than having every voter automatically get a ballot mailed to them. So universal vote at home states, as we call them. The other thing is, it's quite widespread. You can vote at home in every state in the country. It's just a question of how easy or hard they make it. So Oregon is one of 8 states in DC that automatically send everybody a ballot. But all the rest of the states can too. And they have all sorts of systems, multiple security systems, ballot tracking, the ability to cure your ballot if something is wrong with it. Just the centralizing the voters on it so that you don't have to worry about what's your child care needs that day. Do you have time to wait in line? Can you find your polling place, or do you have transportation there? So broadly, we really believe that voting at home delivers democracy to your doorstep. It increases participation, as has been mentioned. Just in the 2024 primary elections, the 8 vote at home states had literally twice the turnout of all of the rest of the states in the country. Twice the turnout. That's what you get by sending everybody a ballot. It enhances security and trust because of those overlapping security, whether it's individual barcodes on the ballot or ballot tracking. There's multiple security measures that make it, and of course it's the gold standard of the paper ballot. And finally, it does remove barriers and increase access. So I'm proud to be here in Oregon, supporting and defending voting at home, and appreciate the work of everyone here, and look forward to continuing to support and promote this really foundational democratic bedrock of our
Well done, Martha. We have the good fortune in the House to have the mayor and the commissioner. They're being a little bit bashful, but if you'd like to say something, or if you want, we'll go to questions, and I'm going to make sure that I get any softballs. Anything difficult I can give to you and my friends, but what's your pleasure? Do you want to say something now, or you want to wait for questions, or what's your pleasure?
I'm happy to hear questions.
Okay, let's go to questions. Yes?
I was just hoping to get some clarity, Senator, on whether or not you have the bill for vote by mail that's pending, and if so, what would it do?
I have said for years now, I want to make sure that the federal government is a partner with states so that from sea to shining sea, people would have a chance to vote the Oregon way. Now, as you know, we're definitely up against it right now with Donald Trump spending all his political capital to stand with Putin on this issue. But we're going to go at this in kind of 2 lanes. We're going to stop Trump and Putin in terms of trying to destroy vote by mail, and we're going to play offense on taking my proposal nationwide across the country.
Can you clear, so correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding, right, is Trump issued his order saying don't vote by mail, and most people are saying he doesn't have that authority. So what's next? How does that get resolved?
Well, I personally believe he does not have the power to do that. But I would just suggest to my friends at home, when has the law ever been a restraint on Donald Trump? You know, Donald Trump sees himself as something resembling a king. So if he gets up in the morning and he watches a TV show, for example, with some of his friends saying they don't like vote by mail, then he's off to the races. So, Alan, you are being logical, and heaven forbid that that were to go describing what goes on in the United States Congress or in Washington, D.C. But A, you're right that he doesn't have the power. B, you ask really how might he do this, and he really, as far as I can tell, does not believe that there are any restraints on the presidency whatsoever.
Let me add to that a little bit too, Senator Pace. The president did issue an executive order earlier on a number of other things related to elections, which we immediately challenged. Oregon and Washington have an action in a number of other states as well. That executive order is subject to an injunction. He has not yet issued an executive order with respect to vote by mail. He's talked about it, but we have not seen that. If that does materialize, we will take him to court on that too, because as the senator correctly points out, the Constitution is very clear. Presidents do not run elections, states do, and that's our responsibility. We'll take that very seriously.
Other questions? Yes.
Does the state have any plans to protect the ballot boxes from vandalism?
Let's hear from our speaker. What you two, I mean, obviously, this is a state issue. What I can tell you is, having voted in the Eastmoreland neighborhood in southeast Portland by Reed College for a number of years now, I can tell you I see them in the days before the election standing out all over the community trying to set in place extra precautions and watchdogs and volunteers and all the rest of it. Let me let these two, starting with Tobias, take it, because A, I can brag on him a little bit. It's a little bit hard for Tobias to brag on the state, but I can because I watch it in my neighborhood.
So one of the best things of this first several months of being Secretary of State has been traveling around the state and meeting county clerks in their counties. Tomorrow I'm going to get to my 32nd county, and every one of them is committed to making sure that Oregonians get to vote in a safe way. That looks a little different in Wheeler County, for example, than it does in Multnomah County, but everybody is committed to that, and they know what works in their districts, in their communities. What frustrates me to no end is the president trying to condition the funds and the support we need to take on those kinds of security concerns on the whims that he might feel about vote by mail or some other, or DEI issues. He said, in order to get money for security cameras, whether that's on a drop box or in an office, we have to sign some statement that's not well written anyway. If they're serious about security, they need to be supporting county clerks. Those are the people on the front lines. They are the heroes of our democracy.
That's why it's so great we have Ms. Buck and the champion for the county.
That's right.
Okay, anybody else? We'll stick around and visit individually with folks. I will tell you, people are asking me more about the shutdown than anything other than vote by mail, and I will talk to you, be glad to do it, because I think, as both of my state leaders, all three of my state leaders know, we are in a very fragile position economically in our state. There was a report just a couple of days ago that 1/3 of the people in the state of Oregon cannot handle an emergency of $400. I mean, just think of that. Think about that's medicine, for example. Could be food, could be housing. We've got people in a tough strait. And Jerome Powell, who, I didn't vote for everything that Donald Trump, came up with, but Donald Trump was right about Jerome Powell. Was trying to fire him now, but he cut interest rates because the economy is so fragile. So if any of you have questions, particularly about the shutdown and the economy, which I think is central to this debate, glad to stick around. But boy, like I started, my mama would say, not only are these the right crowd, folks, they are the extra right crowd. So big thanks, everybody. Appreciate that.
I think they want to take a picture of everybody before we bring it.